you so much. Thanks, Rory. This was a great introduction, and I hope I'm able to do justice to this presentation, to this talk. So I know we want to talk about product growth, and my initial proposal was to talk about user engagement, user monetization, as well as partnerships. But then, as I was going through my talk and also writing down my thoughts, my thought process in creating this sort of this deck, I was like, I think it's more about let's take a step back and think about the entire product lifecycle from acquisition, user acquisition, to user engagement, to user conversion, to user retention, right? So that is what I'm going to talk about, and obviously it's a very broad topic, and then hopefully we will have multiple discussions even after this talk. And also, obviously, feel free to share your questions. I'm assuming this can be an interactive session, but if not, we can go through the presentation and then we can tackle all the questions at the end of the conversation. So, product growth from user acquisition to retention. Basically, how do you growth hack your products, right, or your products and services? Um, so let's get the basics right. And even actually, before going into the basics, how do I know about product growth? So I lead certain enterprise search experiences at Microsoft, but then there have been a whole lot of other experiences that I have been a part of even before my role at Microsoft today. So starting with a data intelligence platform back in the day in 2016, where we collaborated with a market research company and build the platform from the ground up. And my role was to help monetize our users, and basically it was a subscription-based SaaS platform. So we learned a lot about monetization and just user engagement, user creating those feedback growth loops within the product in order to grow the business. And then I worked at a bank as well, where we built this financial banking platform for our customers and clients. And one of the sort of engagements, or one of the projects that I worked on was acquiring users, but then also optimizing the funnel, optimizing the onboarding funnel to make sure users have a frictionless experience when they come back into the product. And then more recently, within Microsoft, I led the Samsung partnership for OneDrive, which is a photos or a content storage application. And in that ecosystem, I led user acquisition, monetization for that entire end-to-end flow, right from the time when users click a photo to sync their photos into OneDrive, and then they hopefully convert or subscribe or create buy a subscription to OneDrive. And then more recently, as I said, I work in the enterprise search space, which is which is gaining momentum in the world today with the new large language models and GPT models coming through. But today, as of today, my main focus is on retention, customer satisfaction or user satisfaction, as well as engagement of users. So this is where my expertise or my experience with product growth comes in, and hopefully I'm able to provide some insights to you that you might not know about, or at least inspire some new thoughts in your mind, which can help you in your product journey as well. So product growth, the what, right? Basically, what is product growth? And the caveat here is that product growth is not the same as product-led growth, which we will come to in some time. So product growth is nothing but, or it can be defined as increasing the value of your business for your customers, starting from your customers, obviously, because they are your users, your stakeholders, your employees, your shareholders, and investors. And I'm assuming this would be the prioritization as well when you're creating value for your business, right? And again, this definition you might or might not find online. This is a definition that I've created according to how I see product growth as, right? And again, this value can be can expand through a couple of or at least a few different perspectives. One is you're increasing the revenue for your product or for your business, right? You're improving the revenue margins within the product through monetization, and that's how you're growing the product per se. Second one is you're increasing the number of users, or you're expanding your user base through new user acquisition, and that is how you're growing your product. Third one can be the usage of a product. You're improving the usage of a product, and that's how your users are getting engaged into the platform, into your products and services, and that's how you sort of grow the value, or grow the product in itself. And the fourth one can be through user retention. Basically, you're increasing the customer lifetime value of your existing customers so that they retain over a long period of time, and create less churn. And that can also be a way for you to grow your product. So product growth can mean different kinds of sort of value that you create across the product life cycle, right from um, acquisition, activation, engagement, conversion, monetization to retention, right? So it can sort of expand, or it can um, uh, go through all stages of your product funnel or your product life cycle. Um, and then we have the different types of product growth, right? So when we say product led growth, it is different than product growth. When I say product growth, it's an all encompassing concept about growing your product through whichever means and systems necessary. So within product growth, you have three types of product growth. There would be a fourth one as well, which I can get to at in some time. In product led, you have, as the name suggests, the product itself is a driver, right? The product growth comes through by investing into new experiences, developing new experiences, enhancing existing experiences, or optimizing existing features within the product, solving for new user challenges, or optimizing solutions for existing user pain points. So basically, the product is the driver for your growth. You're investing a lot into the product development process, into creating new experiences, features, sort of optimizing your product to help with your product growth. And it you can sort of trigger product led growth by investing into new product initiatives such as big rocks bets. You can experiment with your existing features. You can optimize the different funnels in your product set. You can fine tune the processes, and also you can drive other product developments, such as reducing the number of bugs, reducing technical debt in your system. So, in other words, the product itself is responsible for acquiring, signing up for, retaining, and ensuring the loyalty of your customers. And for example, creating an ecosystem or generating new lines of businesses. So when I say creating an ecosystem, that means, for example, Apple bundling its products right into one, or when I say creating new lines of complementary businesses, it can be Netflix foraying into video gaming, right, or Amazon's extension into finance, right? So these are also some of the ways of product-led growth, because the product is expanding in itself, and it is creating value for their users and customers. And almost all software and digital products, for example, Netflix and Twitter and Meta, in today's day and age, are product led in combination with other types of growth, which is marketing and sales led. But mostly, a lot of our software products and services are usually product led, and at various stages of their product life cycle, they can leverage marketing and sales into their ecosystem to sort of fast track their growth, which leads us into sales-led growth, SLG. Again, it's a traditional growth approach that comes through by, as the name suggests, again, improving the sales strategies, improving the processes, a sales funnel of a product, and it can be manifested in different formats. So, for example, you might have aggressive quarterly, semester-wide growth or sales targets, right? You would have to close on or convert qualified leads. You might have customer-client relationship building processes. You would need to upsell. You would need to convert your accounts and retain your existing accounts. So your sales itself is or outreach, sales and outreach is a primary driver of revenue and retention. And it's a main profit center of the company. But also the sales funnel can be relatively long. It can obviously it contains a lot of cold calling, generating leads, qualifying leads, bringing them into the funnel through customer demos, presentations, free trials, then converting those leads into paying customers, and then upselling them, retaining them to generate lifetime value. So all of these activities go into a sales funnel, and that is why a sales funnel is usually a long, depending again, usually a long process, depending obviously on the product or service that you're trying to put out there. And examples of this of sales-led growth consists of service-led companies with complex products such as Microsoft, Salesforce, any industrial instrument companies or manufacturing companies. These products require some hand-holding, or actually a lot of hand-holding, require expertise and training for its users, and that's why they need an extensive enterprise sales team to help them grow in their to help the product grow. The next one is a marketing-led strategy, or or sort of marketing-led product growth, which is another traditional growth approach that introduces new marketing loops into the product ecosystem, and that helps us to, or that helps the company to differentiate the product, right? To reinvent the narrative, or to identify, articulate the value of the brand or the value of the product, to grow the product brand, and thus thus everything else follows, such as increase in revenue, users, or usage. So whatever be the end goal, if you're investing a lot into your marketing budget to help you define or reevaluate uh, the brand value of your product, or the value that you're creating for your customers, or when you want to reinvent the narrative, or you want to differentiate the product in some capacity, that is when product led growth comes in. Or if you want to have a very fast track growth in combination with any of the previous growth approaches, you can go into marketing led growth. So again, there are different types of marketing led growth strategies. It can be content marketing, where you're writing blogs, articles, creating videos, basically generating content. Social media marketing, social channels such as Instagram, Snapchat, Meta for social shares and referrals. Product marketing, for example, free trials, upgrades, limited time offers, for example, 100 GB for 6 months on Google Photos, right? Then product marketing, paid media marketing, where you have paid per click advertising, branded content, and display ads. Or even then, last but not the least, you have traditional marketing as well, where you have your news and print and on the field marketing tactics. So all of these encompass various kinds of channel marketing or product marketing techniques to help you grow the product. And examples, or very specific examples, include traditional product companies such as Coca-Cola or Starbucks or Procter and Gamble. And again, this is not to say that any other companies do not use marketing-led approaches. As I said, even a software company can use a combination of any and all of these approaches, right? For example, there might be a product in your company, in an enterprise company such as Microsoft, which might just use product-led instead of product and sales-led. So there are so many different examples and permutations and combinations that can happen depending on the size of your company, depending on the kind of product or the kind of market industry that you are in, or your product operates in. There are other types of, or there is another type of product growth called as customer-led, which I recently read about, where customer feedback is a core part of generating user value, right? You're getting a lot of feedback from your users, from your customers, and that is used to incrementally drive improvements in your customer experience into your product. But for all purposes, we can club this into product-led growth, because improving the customer experience is part and parcel of the product development and enhancement process by itself. So I would just club that. I would club customer-led growth into product-led growth, just to keep it very concise. Um, Before we jump into product-led growth, which is where my experience lies in, let's talk about how do we measure product growth, right? Now, I think this is a new way of envisioning the kinds of metrics, or the ways you can measure or track the growth of your product through different product life cycle, or through different stages of the product life cycle, which can be when you're introducing a product in the market, the introduction phase, the growth phase, the maturity phase, and then the saturation phase, right? But then you can also track different metrics based on the different sort of stages of the product itself, which can be acquisition, activation, engagement, conversion, monetization, and then retention. So, whichever way you track it, uh, you can obviously track multiple metrics. You can focus on multiple goals at a given point in time. For example, if I already have a product in the market, but I'm sort of let's say GPDifying my existing product, I might look into acquisition as well as, let's say, monetization, right? Depending on my business priorities or depending on what I'm seeing in the market. Or if my product is pretty new in the market, I might just focus on acquisition and then defer the revenue generation for a later date. So let's talk about each of these. Um, there's also the one metric that counts, or the North Star metric, depending on the stage that your company is at, right? It might depend on your long-term vision, your company priorities, your competition in the market, your market or industry fluctuations or conditions. So in reality, you will be focusing on a couple of these stages at a given point in time in the product funnel, whether it's acquisition, activation, engagement, conversion, and retention. So the first one is the introduction phase, where let's assume that you are launching a new product in the market. You've developed this new product, and and the company has, let's say, raised significant funds through investors. Now, in this case, your main objective might be to grow the number of users, right? You want to acquire users very quickly. You want to activate users on the platform very quickly, and you want to compete aggressively. You want to sort of capture the market very quickly and then move on from there, and create sort of this monopoly in your target market. In this case, as I said, you might defer revenue generation to a later date. In this phase, metrics such as number of acquired users, visitor to sign up rate, DAO to MAU rate, time to activate, they might be the best metrics to track. In this case, in this particular scenario, you're also burning a lot of cash at unprecedented levels because you're investing in growing your team. You might be investing investing into marketing as well at this point in time. For example, let's say Blue Apron, VWork, or a whole lot of other companies that have done that in the past. So your burn rate and your runaway rate, how much cash you have until you basically get out of, or sort of run out of your runway, becomes sort of some important yardsticks to consider in this process. As I said, QB, Blue Apron, WeWork, and a whole lot of other startups lost due to a high burn rate, and they ran out of runway before they could start generating profits, or before they could start growing significantly, and then they couldn't sustain themselves any further. But I'm digressing. The first introduction phase is where you might be tracking user acquisition kind of metrics. The second phase is growth phase, right? Here, you want to grow your product. You might want to monetize your product, but you also want to engage your existing users. So whether you're focusing on generating revenue for your product or not, after the first acquisition phase, you will want to pivot your energies into engaging those existing users that you've acquired from the previous phase, by hooking them into the product, and by creating a growth flywheel into the product ecosystem. You can do this by creating more value in the product based on user behavior, user actions, user feedback, and then generating a cycle where users feel delighted to frequent your product, and thus driving this repeat product usage. And in this case, MAU is like literally the basic metric that you can track: frequency of usage, net promoter score, NSAT, net satisfaction, session time, number of sessions per unique user, feature adoption rate, etc. And many more metrics can be tracked to measure user engagement in this particular phase. Next one is maturity phase, which is when your product has amassed a significant audience, and you're in a less vulnerable position. You have done some amount of monetization. Maybe you're generating enough revenue. You have broken even, or you are even on your path to profitability, right? So you're in a comfortable position. You're in a less vulnerable position. There is some amount of competition in the on the horizon, but in this case, you are going to start focusing very aggressively on monetizing your product value. It can be done through subscriptions, freemium models, time-based contracts, transactional costing, advertising revenue, and there are other, obviously, a whole lot of other business models. But in this case, when you're trying to monetize your product, or you want to create a path to profitability, a sustainable MRR, which is monthly recurring revenue, ARPU, which is average revenue per user, conversion rate, customer acquisition cost, revenue versus cost of customer acquisition, and other revenue specific metrics or revenue operational metrics can be tracked depending on your business objectives, business priorities, and also market investor pressure. And then you have the saturation phase. It's basically between, when your product is mature enough, your competitors are sort of closing in on you in a way, your market is shrinking because of increased competition. You eventually want to focus on user retention, right? You must have heard about this multiple times. Acquiring a new customer is costly, at least 5 times more costly than retaining an existing customer. So in this case, you would want to start optimizing your sales, acquisition, engagement, conversion funnels to patch up and streamline any gaps that can lead to customer churn. Basically, you want to patch up any gaps that can lead customers to churn or drop out of your product. You want to identify friction points in the product that is leading users to drop off, or leading users to purchase less or decrease in creating a decrease in their repeat purchases, or reduce their usage of frequency or frequency usage. Sorry, usage of frequency. Usage frequency, or solve for any specific needs of a certain user segment or user persona that is very highly valuable to your product growth. And there are various ways to track user retention. And again, this sort of slide is a consolidated version. There are obviously so many things to talk about, which can lead us to another talk altogether. But you can measure user churn by or user retention by in two ways. One is retention, and then one is how do you reduce churn. When you want to increase retention, you can measure it by retention rate, repeat purchase ratio, or when you want to reduce churn, you can measure it by customer revenue churn or time between purchases, etc. But one metric that usually people love is the customer lifetime value. How much value is your customer generating for your business over the lifetime? If that value, if that period is long, that value is long enough as compared to the cost of customer acquisition, I think you are on the right track in your product journey. So now let's talk about product-led growth. And I know we are running out of time, but I'll go through this very quickly. Product-led growth is, again, as I said, your product is driving the growth, right? You're building a product that sells itself. It's a product that can walk the talk. You are focusing on driving user value, or your product is focused, or your product is driving user value, user trust and loyalty through a frictionless, delightful customer experience. And in this case, you're prioritizing user success or customer success over monetization, right, to help drive that product growth. Your product becomes the key broker for acquisition, activation, engagement, monetization, and retention. And also, product-led growth usually relies on word of mouth and virality rather than run-of-the-mill promotional sales and marketing strategies. So I'm going to skip this because, again, I covered this in one of the earlier slides. You can achieve product-led growth using big rocks or investing in big product initiatives or new product initiatives, or new enhancements to your existing features, or reducing technical debt, or basically improving performance, scalability, stability. But what are the benefits of product-led growth, which took me some time to put together, because it was interesting to really dive into, hey, if I don't invest in marketing and sales, I'm reducing my costs, but in what capacity am I really helping the business or the product grow? Is it just the marketing sales cost which is decreasing, or is there something else which is benefiting me? So one is obviously the decreased customer acquisition cost. Product-led growth does not rely on any external mechanisms. It relies on organically growing or strengthening the product's core value to create exponential value for its users, customers, and hence the cost of acquiring customers is relatively low. right? You gain users mostly through word of mouth, referrals. There are organic channels of customer acquisition, and they lead to minimal user acquisition and activation costs. The second one is decreased overall product costs. So when you invest into your product, when you're sprucing it up, when you're renovating it, when you're cleaning it as you go, by becoming very customer obsessed, you reduce your overall costs, development costs. It can be, let's say, customer support. There might be reduced customer queries or reduced support queries. Account handling and relationship building, there might be less amount of hand holding. There might be less amount of product downtime or crash because you've already started cleaning up your tech debt or upgraded to the latest tech stack, right? So there would be other operational costs as well, which can highly reduce itself if you invest into your product and if it's product-led growth that you're going after. And the last but not the least, it's all about user experience. If you're investing into the success of your users through the betterment of your product, you're creating an amazing frictionless user experience and workflows for your users, and you're prioritizing those use cases or those personas which have the highest ROI, and you're optimizing your product slowly and surely. I know we have just a couple of minutes left, and I had a couple of more slides to get through, but we can take questions if we have any. Otherwise, I can talk through one of the slides.
Hi, thank you very much. Now, I found that really interesting, so I hope everybody out there did as well, because it's always, that's the buzzword at the moment, particularly in the product, is let's be product led, but it's not the only way, and there are situations where it does make sense, as you were explaining, where sales led might be best, or marketing led. So thank you very much for sharing. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to write them in on whichever platform you're watching this on. I think, unfortunately, we don't have time to ask questions, but I am going to ask 2 or 3 questions that I've jotted down in the UXDX Slack group. So I'll invite you to that, and hopefully you can answer the questions there.
Sounds good. That sounds great. I hope it was insightful in some capacity, and thank you for having me.
No, it definitely was, and thank you for joining us. So, thank you very much.